The Brewhouse was created to capture and share with you the long history of the Genesee Brewery. But the brewery itself isn't half as interesting as the beer and the people who make it. Visit GeneseeBrewhouse.com. Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us. This is the Rochester Press Box presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Nice to have Tariq Spence, WDKX, back with us.
Happy to be back.
How you been?
Pretty good. Pretty busy, but good.
All right, double back around, talk a little basketball in a second. Carl Falk, co-hosting.
Thank you.
Nice to have you back. And Pat Duffy, dressed up in...
Well, I got the Toronto Raptors on-court pregame shooting jacket. I wore the Bucks one last week. As we tape this, it's 2-2. I figured I'd even it out for karma's sake. I don't know whether I'm good or bad luck, but we'll figure it out.
Guess I'm neutral on the logo. Do you like the logo? Club basketball?
Well, I mean, it's the old one. I hate the new Raptors jerseys. Like, I'll turn on the playoff games, and they have, like, the gold and the red. It looks like a really bad old-school Atlanta Hawks jersey. Like, I'm like, what am I watching here? What am I watching? Where's Spud Webb? I don't like it.
Tariq, as we record, we don't know who they're playing, but the Golden State Warriors have been an interesting test case, especially playing without Durant. How do you perceive them?
As one of the greatest teams of all time. That's just what they're going to go down as. I mean, 5 finals straight. What's interesting about this team is that they kind of lost their swagger after losing to the Cavs. And they went and got Durant. They won 2 in a row then. And now they're winning without Durant, so it looks like they've got their swagger back, which is very unusual. Usually teams kind of, put in too much, destroys their chemistry. But with Durant out and Cousins out, they found themselves again, which is something teams don't normally do. They usually just take the money and run, or there's some problems chemistry-wise. It's a bizarre thing. Makes Steph Curry literally, an iconic era basketball player.
Boy, they're so much more fun to watch this way.
They are. And I mean, they shoot the ball well. They communicate team basketball. They don't care who the hero is. And they do a great job of letting all of that stuff lay out on the floor. They never panic like a good clutch team does. They've been down 15. They come back and they win. So, they're going for another chip. I just hope Durant leaves after that.
Carl, I'm one of these guys. I have a tough time justifying it, actually thinking through the thing, but I'm one of those guys who disliked Durant going to that team, moving from Oklahoma City and planting himself. So for me, the desired result here is either to have Golden State win without him or lose with him. I just really feel strongly about that.
I think you're going to find out, because I don't think he'll be back. I really think he is done in Golden State, like you said. Yeah. And it's interesting. One thing, they are not better without Kevin Durant, but they certainly are different without Kevin Durant. Without Durant, the ball moves more. Steph has to do more. And you've seen it since Durant's been out. He's shooting more. He's cutting more without the ball. The ball's moving more. And the unsung hero is Draymond Green, a guy who I particularly don't like, but he seems to have matured. In the last couple games, you've seen calls where here goes Draymond, and you expect the explosion. Hasn't been there. This guy is a triple-double machine. You talked about the leadership, the vocal leadership. There have been clips of him on the court. He's been great. And again, it's all about Steph. But Draymond has been the MVP of the last series, in my opinion.
Yeah, I do find it interesting. Kevin Durant is doing what everybody does when they leave a job, right? Like, you burn all the sick days you have left and then get the heck out of town.
That's right.
But what I find most interesting about the Warriors is you brought up, you bring in Kevin Durant to get your swagger back. Everyone forgets, you are one suspicious suspension with Draymond Green. They're up 3-1 in that series against the Cavaliers. If Draymond Green doesn't get suspended, they beat the Cavs. LeBron doesn't have his championship in Cleveland. Things are completely different. I think that they would still have gone to 5 championships and won 5 championships had that suspension not happened and Kevin Durant or even DeMarcus Cousins signed. And that's what's so remarkable about this team is when you look at teams built throughout NBA history, there was always a free agent big time that they brought in. Without Kevin Durant, they built this team completely organically. Okay, you have Iguodala coming in as a free agent, but, I mean, he had worn out his welcome in Philadelphia, and he wasn't the superstar that everyone thought he was going to be when he came in. They built this team with guys that nobody else wanted, and they're arguably the greatest NBA team in history.
Does anybody else hold it against Durant for signing on that
I don't hold it against Durant, although there was this big push about we hate super teams. And then we created a super team, and now they're an iconic super team. So we've kind of let that go a little bit of these building of super teams.
So we hated when the players put them together.
Yes.
And I go back to the 2008 Celtics, their big three.
Yep.
Well, they had to trade for them. They had to
listen
do
to the
things.
homer.
Yeah.
Hold on. Listen to the homer.
I'm just saying there's a distinct difference to the way those teams were constructed versus the Miami Heat and the Golden State Warriors.
But they did want to play together. They did want to, Garnett, he wished he had moved sooner when that team was being put together.
Yeah, but he was reluctant.
Yeah, he didn't want to, but then we started liking it. We started seeing these teams start to come together, and somehow, because the Warriors play such good basketball, that whole putting the super team together thing sort of went away, and it was kind of like, this is fun to watch, but now what do they need? A rival. They have no rival, and we need to get back to getting a rival. The only team that really wanted to beat them, to me, was the Houston Rockets, and they blew their opportunity.
We are the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brew House, talking Bills next. The Press Box is brought to you in part by Bay & Goodman Pizza, a local Rochester favorite. Corner of North Winton and Browncroft, Bay & Goodman Pizza. Hi everyone, thanks for joining us. This is the Rochester Press Box. We are presented by the Genesee Brew House. Talking Buffalo Bills, could the beginning of OTAs have gone any worse for this team?
It's just smooth, the tight end you bring in to take over the position. He's out 3.5 months. 2 other big free agents had surgery. 2 other guys, running backs, aren't practicing. Perfect. Seamless. I said a couple weeks ago on the show that they brought in a lot of guys. We don't know how good those guys are going to be. It seems as though Bean isn't bothered by previous injury history. See Trent Murphy last year. It's already seeming to bite them with Tyler Kroft being out for this long. This is a concern. And tight end was a big position in need. They went in the 3rd round. Dawson Knox comes in. He might be the starter at this point. Is that a good thing for Josh Allen?
Was it just last week you were screaming about the 6th tight end?
All right, so I was ranting and raving. At one point, they had 7 tight ends on the roster, and what are you
You were
doing?
ranting and raving?
Believe it or not. Believe it or not. But this happening makes me even angrier because here's the thing, right? So Kroft goes down. He's your arguable starter. He's your pass-catching tight end out of the group of people you have. He's got 67 career receptions in the NFL. So your pass-catching tight end is down. Dawson Knox, who you just brought up, did not catch a touchdown pass in college, and you traded up to go get him. Somehow, even though you have 47 tight ends on your roster, you don't have one that can run a route and catch a football. How does this always happen? And why me? Why? Why do they keep putting us in this position where, we're literally 13 minutes into the first OTA, and hey, $9 million, set it on fire. That's fine. Everything's fine. I'm fine.
It's like a cautionary tale. I mean, you can only count on so much. Right?
I'd like to see if Duffy's head explodes when I say Julian Edelman is going back to the Patriots too, by the way.
Stupid beard.
It all works. Relax.
Much better.
Relax. We haven't even gotten to camp yet. They haven't even gotten to Fisher yet. Let them work it out. I am worried about your offensive weapons though. Who is Allen going to throw the ball to?
We talked about this.
This is your biggest issue. Your running backs. I get to that. We'll get to the story of running backs later. But who is he going to throw the ball to? He ran for his life in the games that I've seen, and it doesn't look like you've improved on that at all.
Yeah, I don't.
You think about this team, and you think about the job McDermott and Bean have done in the rebuild, and defensively, it's obviously gone really well. Who's the best offensive player they have brought in? At this point, it's Josh Allen, who's the biggest mystery in the NFL. They have struck out left and right on the offensive side of the ball, and this offseason has brought in all sorts of people on the offensive side.
Strength in numbers.
But to that point, listen, I'm not happy with the way the offense is going, but I mean, strike out, the one real dice they rolled offensively was Kelvin Benjamin, and I don't hate that deal at the time because, okay, you needed the thing, and he's your big guy.
Zay Jones and Deion Dawkins were both 2nd-round draft picks. Have they panned out?
Okay, but Dawkins, again, it's still early. He's an offensive lineman. You know how all of a sudden playing next to the right guy, things click, and but Zay wasn't getting any favors done for him either. You got a rookie quarterback, Nate Peterman, and Tyrod Taylor, so I don't know. Like, all of these pieces feed into other pieces. So I think it is a little bit unfair to say, well, they're swinging offensively and missing the way that they are.
It's clear no wide receivers want to play in Buffalo. I mean, I'm convinced they can't bring anyone in to play, especially now you have a second-year quarterback. The question is, where do your wide receivers come? Usually it's from the draft or trade. So the biggest issue is attracting wide receivers that really want to come here and build with this quarterback.
So I heard your opening monologue. I mean, it was this cold slap in the face, and you said you still think they look like a 6-win team.
I really do. If you look at this team, again, defensively, we're like, oh, they're pretty good, probably above average. Offensively, who can you count on? Who can you say today in May that this guy's going to be good? This guy's going to have a good year. The biggest question is Allen. And if Allen becomes what he is, you were saying wide receivers.
Yes.
Josh Allen becomes what everyone thinks he's going to be, wide receivers will come to Buffalo.
Correct.
If he's the guy he was last year, nobody's going to want to come here. And it's going to be difficult. The biggest thing is the offensive line. They've rebuilt that line. If that's good, they're going to have a chance to be good.
But, I mean, just real quick, I mean, like you say, who's going to be good? What could they have done this offseason? Who was there where they could have gone out, plucked a guy, and you would have said in this offense, I have confidence in this person to be successful?
Well, I don't think it's about this year. I think it's about last year, the year before. Remember, this is year 3
Sure.
of McDermott's drafts.
Sure.
You know, I know Doug Whaley was the GM year 1, but that was Sean McDermott running that draft. So this is his 3rd year. He hasn't gotten it right yet. Hopefully, if Allen's right, then that'll cure a lot of ills.
This is the Rochester Press Box. We're presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Like It or Not is next. Here's the Press Box trivia question brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390.
Today is all about belief. Right? It's not enough for me to believe it. It's not enough for Coach Hill or Coach Barstrom to believe it. You have to be the ones that believe that you are capable of running the way that we all know you are capable of, and that those negative thoughts that are coming into your head, you can acknowledge and push away. What's your response to them going to be? 5 more meters, 5 more meters, 5 more meters.
Here's the Press Box trivia answer brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. This is the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Pat, like it or not, Stanley Cup Finals.
If you're asking me personally, I hate the Stanley Cup Finals right now because no matter what happens, it's a nightmare in my world. Okay, as a Sabres fan, I despise the Boston Bruins. They're awful. I had to cheer for the Bruins to beat the Leafs because I hate the Leafs even more, but now I feel guilty because I cheered for the Bruins who are in the Stanley Cup Finals. Then we go over to the St. Louis Blues, who the Sabres pull off a massive trade with before the season starts, right? They ship off Ryan O'Reilly and get a couple of picks, a pick and a couple of players back. 2 of those players aren't going to be on the roster next year. Tage Thompson, who was the youngest guy, is having huge question marks there. And the first-round pick could arguably be the last pick in the draft. And if St. Louis wins the Stanley Cup, all we're going to hear all summer long from Twitter tough guys, Ryan O'Reilly should keep him, what'd you do? They talk like that for some reason. No. So there's literally nothing that can happen in the Stanley Cup Finals that will make me happy. And I don't know what to do because I love hockey, but I don't want to watch it. So I'm just going to sit here and pout.
Yeah. You know, I got to root for Boston because it's been almost 4 months since they last won a championship.
God, I hate you.
I could root for Boston if Brad Marchand wasn't on that team. I despise that guy. He does things that I've never seen an athlete at any level of any sport do, and he gets away with it, and he's a great player. It drives me insane.
Like it or not, O.J. Simpson's numbers has been reissued by the Buffalo Bills, 32.
Hate it. Absolutely hate it. Look, O.J. was the greatest player in Bills history. And I really don't think it's that close. He is the greatest player in Bills history. And yes, what he did after he retired, it's nothing anybody wants to reflect on. His number should have been retired years ago. He belongs in the Wall of Fame. He should be there. However, he's one of those guys that we don't want to think about, right? Because you don't want to acknowledge his greatness and you don't want to bring up what he did. So you leave it in the closet. Well, now Sonoris Perry, a journeyman running back who will be lucky to make the team, is going to be bringing up questions about OJ, every day at St. John Fisher this year, and it's not the questions that you want asked.
It's time to move on. I mean, listen, what are we going to do with OJ? This is the final decision. The jersey number is the decision now. We've been putting this on the back burner. Is he going to be a Bill? Is he going to be embraced? Is he going to be forgiven? What do you want to do with this? If you do want to move on and give the number, a lot of younger generations don't know about OJ.
Right.
So then you would just be basically number 32, you would see in the stands.
And to that way, it's almost a good thing they're giving it to a guy who's not projected to be a star.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're doing it exactly the perfect way they should have done it, right? Like I know it's not even close to the same thing.
Why bring it out?
Well, why hide it? Because here's why. If you don't bring it out, it's kind of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge to people. Like, yeah, it's retired, but we can't say anything. There are people who still idolize O.J. Simpson, and not just because of what he did on the field, but because it's become some kind of dark joke within the stadium. You see those guys that wear those O.J. Simpson jerseys to New Era Field, and they're like 25 years old. They didn't watch the juice run behind the electric company. They're doing it because you have to reissue it, and they should have done it 10 years ago. They should have done it the day after he was arrested for everything that went down in the first place. Listen, I'm fine with what they did, and I think...
Yeah. This is Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Unfinished Business is next. And now here's this week's MVP Experience Stat of the Week, brought to you by Sport Clips, where it's good to be a guy. No appointment ever needed.
And now to Eichel. He floated one.
Baskin-Robbins ice cream flavored coffees are back at Dunkin'. Try banana split, pistachio almond fudge, or butter pecan ice cream flavors in your Dunkin' coffee today. America runs on Dunkin'.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining us on the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Unfinished Business brought to you by Dunkin'. America runs on Dunkin'.
We were just talking about the Stanley Cup final, and the way that everything has ended up proves that nobody knows anything about anything when it comes to sports and hockey. All the experts are wrong. For example, the St. Louis Blues, as of January 2nd, were the worst team in the NHL. They're playing for a Stanley Cup. By the way, right around that time is when the Sabres were also the number one team in the NHL, and they have draft lottery pick, but we're not going to talk about that. But even more interesting, the Boston Bruins. There's this belief right now in the NHL that you need to bring your young talent up as fast as you can from the minors, pay them cheaply, and get everything you can out of them, because it's impossible to support financially and physically a veteran NHL club. When you look at the Boston Bruins, that core of the team, with the exception of Marchand, who again isn't super young, those are old guys. Zdeno Chara is 42 years old. He costs a fortune. You have Bergeron of the same kind of thing, yet they're in the Stanley Cup finals. It's proof that all of these talking heads in loud suits with mullets. By the way, why do Canadians still have mullets? It's 2019. It's not 1984. What I'm saying is we need to stand back and examine what we think about hockey now, because everyone that said this is how you need to do it is wrong based on how the finals turned out.
I think it's sad that someone who likes hockey as much as you do can't develop a rooting interest for one of these two teams.
I'll find some. No, I won't. I hate them. God, I hate them. I hate both of them. Sucks.
Tariq.
I have to give a shout out to all those that came out. UFC was in Rochester, Blue Cross Arena, sold out event. Desmond Green is from Henrietta, wrestled there, won a championship, went to the University of Buffalo, wrestled there as well, went into the professional ranks, and he got a chance to actually get into the ring for MMA's UFC in his hometown. The energy was electric. In interviewing him, he was nervous beforehand. It looked like it was going to be a tough fight, and he wasn't going to come out number one on. But he did. He looked into the stands. He saw his mom. His mom gave him a look that said everything. Go out here and close this one out. He did that. He won in front of his home crowd with his family, a moment he will never forget. That is a textbook story of a guy who came from this area, came back and campaigned to be in this area, to bring UFC, and brought it home for the Rochester area. So shouts out to Desmond Green and his big win.
You know, such a long time coming. I couldn't find anybody to say anything negative about what happened out there that night.
It's a big, big draw. It was a nice event where everybody came together and enjoyed it.
More of it?
I think so, on the way. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Go.
This week, Syracuse University lost another player to the NBA, O'Shea Brissett, was going pro after his sophomore year. O'Shea didn't have a very good sophomore season, and many Syracuse fans are going to go, he's not ready. This kid shouldn't go, and be very upset because next year's team, not looking all that great. This year's team wasn't all that great either. But I love that we decide how we're going to spend a young man's money. 20-year-old kid, if he's going to get drafted, at the very minimum, is going to start his life with probably about $500,000. It's not a bad way to start. And he's going to play basketball. Doesn't have to worry about class, doesn't have to worry about anything other than basketball. Stop ruining kids' dreams. Let them enjoy their moment. Let them get their money. He looks at Tyus Battle. Had Battle gone last year, he'd have a lot of money. This year, he's not going. Good for O'Shea Brissett.
You know what I hear a lot of is it's wasn't all that good. You know, it was,
Right.
You know,
It's
these
strange,
teams.
but he killed the combine. He killed the combine. Measured extremely well, shot the ball well. They love his potential.
Yeah, but I'm talking about more Syracuse basketball. It's like, when is this going to turn the corner?
Not next year.
Oh, you find a new head coach. How about that? Talk like this a little bit so people don't hear us out in Syracuse.
Sounds like a conspiracy.
It seems to be a trend.
This is the Rochester Press Box presented by the Genesee Brewhouse Unfinished Business, brought to you by Duncan. America runs on Duncan. Tariq, great as always. Thanks, man.
Thanks for having me.
Carl, Pat,
Thank you.
thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week with the Rochester Press Box.